honored graduates, parents, friends, and fellow colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to say something about Chris as a student I had in grade 10 biology and the upper school physics. Dr. Castel attended this school between 1967 and 1971. As a career teacher of 35 years, Chris was one of the few students of mine who displayed remarkable insight and talents from grade 10 on. Dr. Castel has been a lifelong entrepreneur, scientist, and developer of medical technologies for rehabilitation, medicine, and physical therapy. It started in the family basement with his invention of a novel, tunable dye laser system for exhibit in York Regional Science Fairs 1970-71. Dr. Castel's dye laser was one of 4 picked for the May 1971 competition at the Canada-wide Science Fair, University of Edmonton, in the physics area. As top fair winner in physics, Chris was named Young Scientist of the Year for Canada and was given the Canadian Association of Physics Award. In his last year of high school at King City, in the bio that Chris has given me here, he thanks kudos to myself and Al Farquharson, his physics and electronics teachers, who offered advice and guidance for this crazy project. A good friend of his, Mike Finnegan, also in the same year, won the other major science award in biology and went on to veterinary school at Guelph. King City that year took the top 2 science fair prizes for Canada. I would like to point out, as a science teacher and director of York Science Fairs for 3 years, King City, as far as I know, remains the only school in Canada for part of our awards of distinction that have captured the top 2 prizes at the Canadian Science Fair. As an added distinction, I'd like to recognize my assistant head Ed Smirker for also assisting in the science fair area. But this isn't the end of the Castel. There's other unique talents I'd like to point out about the Castel family. Younger brother Mark won the top Canadian Science Fair Award 6 years later, also attending this school. And his sister Maria has a double master's at the University of Western Michigan. As Chris says, how about this for a small high school? Back to Chris. Following King City, and then to York University, where Chris studied biology and physics, Dr. Castel started his first medical device company in Toronto, Intertronic Systems, to make pain management and acupuncture stimulators. He then moved the company to Chicago in the late 70s to take advantage of the large American market, and grew the company to a multi-million-dollar enterprise, which filed for initial public offering in 1983 on the New York Stock Exchange, where he managed the company as chairperson and founding shareholder. In the next 25 years, Dr. Castel spent time teaching, developing, and marketing new products to improve pain management, heal wounds, and improve recovery after stroke and neurologic disease. The same advanced methods were also applied to elite athletes to improve performance and accelerate recovery from injury. The company's products continue to be the official muscle stimulators for the NHL, NBA, and many Olympic teams in Canada, the US, and Japan. Dr. Castel has published more than 50 articles in scientific journals and textbooks, taught worldwide, and is a member of numerous professional organizations. Chris received his doctorate in 2003 from Showa University, Japan Medical School, in physical medicine and rehabilitation research. In 2007, Chris retired from his role as president of the other company he founded, Accelerated Care Plus in Reno, Nevada, following the sale of his controlling interest in the company to a Florida investment banking firm. Chris then became the chief scientist and technology officer. Dr. Castel is also a research professor at Koriyama Institute of Health Science, Educational Foundation Koriyama Academy at Fukushima, Japan, where he teaches, performs clinical research several months of the year. Chris is married to his lovely wife, Dawn, who is here today, for nearly 30 years, and they have 2 children, Jacqueline and Jean Paul. Dawn is a physical therapist and a graduate of medical school in Chicago. I co-founded the business in Chicago with Chris and worked with him through to 2007 when she retired and decided on a new career in fashion design. Dawn attends the fashion design in San Francisco, where she'll graduate this coming year. Their daughter, Jacqueline, graduated as a film director works with, directs independent films in New York. While son, Jean Paul, 2-time athletic champion, gymnastics and hurdles, attends UCLA and is trying his hand at worldwide film, business, and archaeology. Chris enjoys the culinary arts and wine, travels, in search of the best tables. And finally, that's not the end of multi-talent Chris. Chris is a private pilot, scuba certified, and is currently studying for his master's sommelier designation at the Culinary Institute of America, Napa Valley, California. It has been a real joy to bring you the multi-talented Chris Castel.
Well, I have to say that was an interesting voyage through a few memories, and I'm real pleased to be here. It's a real honor. It was funny. Yesterday I wandered in. Well, first of all, I drove up 400 and came across King City Side Road, and I said, boy, this hasn't changed an enormous amount, because I used to take the school bus every day for 4 years, and back at that time we were busily playing euchre. I tended to be more in the front of the bus than the back of the bus, with the football gang. And I think the one or two things that Mr. Sargent could undoubtedly attest to is that I think I always won the K for Fitness test from being the lightest one on the thing that could stand in front of a bar and hold myself for a minute and a half. And I think I was okay on the rings. But other than that, I won't go down in the annals of athletic fine prowess in this high school, but I didn't get to my current height until I was in university. So I think I grew 4 inches by the time I was 17. Now my friends asked me, well, did you carry a pencil protector around while you were in high school? And they always give me some grief about this. And I said, oh no, not at all. I carried a briefcase. And I found that it was actually quite a convenient thing, because I could fortunately for me, my father spent a lot of time teaching me French lessons when I was young, and so as a result I could conjugate every conceivable verb in every conceivable tense. And so during my French classes I could secretly open my briefcase This is where I learned how to multitask, you see. You look like you're paying attention to the teacher while the briefcase is open and you're working on some other project. And, so he would ask me some sort of a thing in French, and boom, I would answer him immediately and continue with what was going on. And a friend of ours who's not here, Catherine Ventruti at the time, always beat me in the French class by 3 points. He would give her 100% and gave me 97%. And I said, but I speak better and I'm better in my grammar. And he says, yeah, but you pay no attention in class and she actually works. So I guess that was kind of one of those things where I went, oh my gosh, oh well. So there's an easy way to get an extra, boost to your grade point average, right? You take French and do things you like. It's interesting. I think in life you have to do things that you have a passion for. And funnily enough, I was talking to Sarge, if I could call you that, and on the way in here this morning, and he said, the one thing I remembered was this lie detector that you were telling me about in my health class, and how you could measure skin resistance, and I was building lie detectors in the basement at the time. I found it was a handy thing for college because when I went to university, selling lie detectors is a terrific thing. I mean, you do the card trick, right? You can detect a lot of interesting things in various groups. So we'll leave it to your imaginations as to what we might have mischievously been doing with those devices back in the 70s. But in any case, the funny part was a friend of mine came back from China and had this big acupuncture doll, and all of a sudden we started playing with this lie detector and discovered that you could locate acupuncture points on the surface of the skin because they had different electric resistances. And so we made this first little thing called an acuprobe in a cigar tube, and I got hooked up with the Acupuncture Foundation of Canada, and we started making these little portable point locators for doctors of acupuncture. And this is long before we knew about endorphins or anything else. We were all talking about such things as the wind from the east and the west and the chi flowing and all kinds of marvelous things, and no one really knew anything except that people who weren't responding to drugs and surgery and had chronic pain seemed to be getting some pretty miraculous cures. And we were going, boy, this is pretty cool stuff. I mean, later, I have, as a result of being in the business side of this, I also have had the chance to work with a lot of very eminent scientists, people like Ron Melzack out of Montreal, who's Order of Canada, and a big mentor to me. And he's still doing well. Excuse me. Have to reconstitute myself a moment because Ron and I have had a long friendship, and he meant a lot to me, and he still does. So anyway, continuing along on this little interesting voyage, we've done all sorts of crazy stuff. Gone public. We managed to do some fun things with that. We bought airplanes, we did all kinds of stuff, boats, airplanes. I mean, we were 28 years old and IPO'd a company, and we thought we were on top of the world. Nearly bankrupted it 3 years later. Kind of recovered the thing and cranked along, sold the thing again in the mid-90s and did well with that. And unfortunately, the $4 billion healthcare company we sold it to managed to go bankrupt, and we bought the company back from them again in the beginning of 2000, and we now have about 230 employees and have a pretty sizable business with that. So I think one of the things that you learn in life is that A, follow your passion, but B, don't be afraid to fail and don't be afraid to move forward in life and pick up the pieces. And I think the message we need to bring to all of our students is really, kind of a drive to succeed, but a belief in yourself and in your passion, and you need to do that in a way where you have to have a strong ego, but that's for yourself, and a little less when you're around others. Perhaps we all learn that over the years, I think I had a reasonably strong ego after IPOing a company when I was 28, but that's managed to modify itself, and I think it's a good thing. We learn a lot about those issues in our lives and we move forward. So I think in the scheme of affairs, I think those are important messages to take to others. And, you know, I'm delighted to be here. So, you know, thank you very much. I won't keep you going along. We can chat a little bit later on and catch up, and I look forward to doing that. So thank you.